Hi, this is Sean D'Souza, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation Podcast. This podcast isn't some magic trick about how to work less. Instead, it's about how to really enjoy the work that you do and to enjoy your vacation time. Hi, I'm Sean, and you're listening to the 3-Month Isolation. No, it's the 3-month vacation. Anyway, to get started, let's go back all the way to the year 2001. We'd just been in New Zealand for a little over a year, and we decided to go back to India to sell our house and tidy up all the affairs because while we hadn't left in a big hurry, there's a lot of tidying up to do. And Renuka had a job with a multinational here in New Zealand. I stayed back in India for a little while, and when Renuka got back, she quit her job. It's not like we had the luxury of her quitting a job. I was still very much finding my feet in a new country. I was freelancing, the jobs were erratic, the income was erratic. And Renuka's job gave us a lot of breathing space because she earned a really good income. And, we were not in a position for her to quit her job, but quit her job she did because she was being very badly treated at that organization. And if you know Renuka, you know she's no pushover, not by a long shot. And yet, they just were really bad employers. And when she quit, she didn't want to look for another job. She didn't want to do anything. If I asked her, what are you going to do next? She didn't have an answer. And this brings up a question. Is it irresponsible when you know that you have to change your current situation, but you don't act on it? In today's podcast, we'll look at a concept of fixed mindset, then which comes first, the mindset or the skill set, and finally, the multiple mindsets that we're dealing with, not just one. We think it's one, but there are several levels of mindsets that we have to conquer. Let's start out with the first topic, which is the fixed mindset. If you have children or have worked with young kids, you'll know one thing for sure. All kids can draw, every single one of them. So you take a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old and you give them a piece of paper or some crayons, and they will all draw, every single one of them. And they're all equally good or hopeless, the way you want to look at it, but they can all draw. And what they're really hopeless at is maths, geography, history, all of that stuff. At 3, they're hopeless. They're pretty good at art for a 3-year-old. And then as they go to school, they stop drawing. And they get very good at maths and geography and history and all that stuff. And their drawing, it's hopeless. By the time a kid is about 6 or 7 years old, they have a fixed mindset. They determine that they're really good at drawing or they're hopeless at drawing. And this is true for a lot of things in life. We will find ourselves saying, I'm terrible at cooking, I'm hopeless, I cannot so much as boil an egg. We'll say things like, I can't draw a straight line. And when we have this mindset, we know that inherently there's something wrong with what we're saying. We know that you can't necessarily be born with a skill. You can't be born with learning to ride a bicycle. It's a skill. No one has ever got onto a bicycle and gone straight down the road. No one was born with that skill. No one jumped onto Photoshop and was able to figure out Photoshop because Photoshop didn't even exist 25 years ago. So we know that a lot of the things that people say, I'm hopeless at doing, is just because they didn't have the experience to do it. They didn't have a chance to make those mistakes. They were told by a well-meaning parent that you're good at this and you're hopeless at that. But every kid is hopeless at maths and geography and history at the age of 3, and they all become relatively good by the age of 10 and going forward. And this tells us that there is something in between. There is something that we're missing in this story. That's what causes us to have the fixed mindset. And then you might have run into a book or a podcast that tells you talent is a reduction of errors. This is something that we've been going on. So if you know the errors and you reduce them, then you become talented. Just like driving a car. When you first start driving a car or riding a bicycle, you make, 50 errors. Then you go down to 40 errors and 30 errors. And eventually when you stop making errors, you can drive a car or ride a bicycle. And that's how skill is generated. And that removes that fixed mindset. So now we've gone from, wait a second, we were not born with this, but we can acquire this skill and we can become relatively good. We don't have to become world champions at riding bicycles or driving cars, but we are pretty good at it. And so we've gone past that fixed mindset. We learn that we can write better, we can draw better, we can cook to a degree where we're as good as professionals. We might not be professionals. We're not creating 600 dishes every night. But if we change our mindset and we say, yes, we can do it, then we can do it. And we can't. We stop at that point in time. Even when we have the mindset, even when we say, okay, I can draw, I can write, there are people around me learning Photoshop, there are people around me learning all these skills that they thought, I'm not talented at this or I'm not talented at that, but now they are suddenly very good at it. And yet there is still this blockage. People seem to be frozen, and it almost comes down to a point of, are they being irresponsible? They know what they have to do, but they don't do it. And this takes us to our second part, which is the difference between skill set and mindset. I have a presentation in which I stand before an audience, and whether there are 20 people or 500 people, what they have to do is draw a cartoon whale. Now, before I start off that presentation, I always ask them, how many of you think that you can draw a whale? And most of them go, I'm hopeless at drawing. And I go, how about 5 minutes? Do you think we can do this in 5 minutes? Nothing to lose. They go ahead. And then I take them through these stages where everyone draws their version of a whale, which looks like a guppy at times. And then they end up with this whale. What happens is this marked difference between 5 minutes ago and 5 minutes later. The illustration 5 minutes later doesn't look like a professional, but it's almost there. It's like 50, 60%, maybe 70% there. What's really happening in that zone? What's really happening is they have developed a skill set. They haven't developed a skill set to become a cartoonist and draw 700 different kinds of animals or people in different positions and emotions, but they have developed a skill set to draw a whale. And that changes their mindset. And we know it changes their mindset because right after they've drawn a whale and they've shown it to everybody and they're all laughing and enjoying themselves, I ask them, who would like to draw an aardvark? People don't even know how to start drawing an aardvark. But there is enthusiasm and there is confidence that they can draw, and that's the difference. So what we're seeing here is that the skill set leads to a change in mindset. And what you've heard so far and what you're reading probably, is that you have to change your mindset and then you become talented and then you become skilled and then you stop being irresponsible. But it's the other way around. When you get the skill set, you go, oh wait, I'm good at this. And you get the confidence. And confidence then changes your mindset, which is why we have this constant chatter of imposter syndrome. We have people saying, I'm an imposter, I feel like an imposter, I don't feel like I'm up to this. And that's not because they don't have the mindset. They set out to become an artist. They set out to cook. They set out to write emails. But they don't have the skill set. And the moment they have the skill set, and the moment people look at it and go, oh, wow, I didn't know you could write such good autoresponders, or I didn't know that you could draw so well or cook so well. Now the mindset changes. When we think that we have to change our mindset before the skill set, I think we're doing it in the wrong order. We need to move it the other way. And the way to do it is not to change the entire skill set. It's not to learn everything in Photoshop or not to be able to draw 15 different types of cartoons, but to get control over one small section, to have that tiny increment. And when you have that one tiny increment and the second tiny increment and third increment, which is what we do. We do like a whale, and then we do a snowman, and then we do... In 1 hour, you can do something like 17 or 18 drawings if you're excessive. But you can still get 6 or 8 really good drawings, and then everyone can replicate them, and everyone is confident, and the mindset has changed. Many years ago, 25 years ago maybe, I started out as a cartoonist, and I had an office, and right next to the office was a creative director, and he was in graphic design, and of course I was drawing cartoons. And often when I would send my cartoons off to some designer, they would place it badly, and I was really annoyed with it. So I wanted to learn graphic design, but I was hopeless at graphic design. I was just as bad as every 7-year-old kid goes to school and says, I'm not good at graphic design. I was not born with graphic design as a talent. Luckily for me, there was this graphic designer, creative director next door, and I'd show him some of my work, and he would say, you move this around and see how it changes, or you move that around and see how it changes. At which point I ran into Robin Williams. This is the designer, not the actor. Robin Williams, The Non-Designer's Design Book. See how sneaky it is? So I was a non-designer. She was going to teach me how to do design. I bought the book. I started going through the book. I started showing my work to the creative director. He said, your work has improved so much. My mindset changed. I was no longer a cartoonist. I was a cartoonist / designer, graphic designer. Not up to his level, but I changed my whole attitude. This is how you can learn web design, which is what I did for some time. This is how you can learn watercolors, podcasting, almost anything. You get a bit of the skill set in place, and then you start to get the mindset. And then you go / I'm a writer / a cartoonist / graphic designer / podcaster / you get all these slashes against your name. You don't have to go around putting it on your business card. But the point that I'm making is get the skill set, get a small subsection of the skill set, and it changes a bit of the mindset. And more skill set, more mindset. It's not the other way around. It's very hard for you to wake up one day and go, oh, I'm a graphic designer, or I'm a cartoonist, or I'm a really good chef. No, that's not going to happen. But once we've got that skill set or subsets of the skill set going, then our mindset changes. And this brings us to the end of the second part. In the first part, we looked at this, I'm not born with this fixed mindset. We know somewhere along the way that fixed mindset is to go, but we're struggling with it. And it sounds and looks like it's irresponsible because we're not doing anything to change it. But the reality is that we are going about it in the wrong order. You have to get the skill set or a very tiny bit of the skill set before the mindset changes. And then it kind of keeps lagging behind. But in the third part, we're going to explore different kinds of mindset and why we're not having this even battle, but battles at many levels. When I was a kid, my parents would wake up at 5:30 a.m. and then they would set about making sandwiches for us to take to school. And then they would set out to work. And work was not a job. My father had a business. He had a secretarial college. He trained women, young women, to be secretaries and stenographers. And Before him, there was no precedence of anyone in his family having a business. But right after he got into business, some of his he had six brothers, they got into business as well, and they thrived in those businesses. So that's the kind of world that I grew up in, was that it was okay. It was okay to be in a business. Risk was an acceptable part of what you did. And probably it was a little weird getting a job. But if you're on the other end of the spectrum and your family is very job-oriented, then your parents will keep reminding you that you have to get a job, that you have to get a good job, that you have to get a good position in this big company, and you have to have all of this thing nicely stacked up and have to be set for life. Now that is a mindset that you have to crack as well. Because if you decide, wait a second, I'm going to go into business, that is one level of mindset that you have to break through. And then at the same time, you decide, I want to learn to draw cartoons, or I want to write, or I want to podcast, and all of these skills, they seem so distracting. But you're fighting this battle at multiple levels. One is the level of the job versus business, the security versus risk. All of that stuff is happening at the same time as you're trying to add skills. And of course, you feel like an imposter. You feel like an imposter at so many levels. And this is the thing that we don't understand. Because when we read a neat little book that says, change your mindset, everything goes with it, they're not being wrong. But they're not exploring all of these other subsets of confusion that sits around waiting for us to trip into them, and then we're lost. I should have a deep sigh here, but I won't sigh. All I'm saying is that understand what you're going through and understand that there's nothing wrong with you, that you have to give yourself that transition time. And usually the best way to do it is to get that skill set, to then get paid for just a tiny bit of that skill set. So maybe you can just draw whales, cartoon whales, and then you get paid for that, or people say that you're really good at it. And slowly it starts to catch up. If you get paid for it, now you've got a very tiny business going, but you've got a business going. And in doing so, you're changing multiple mindsets. You're changing the mindset of job versus business. You're changing the mindset of I can't draw, I can't cook, I can't do this, I can't do that. And then your business card has just one title. Instead, you could have a business card that, well, theoretically speaking, a business card that said podcaster / writer / dancer / chef / whatever you want to be. And with that, we come to the end of this podcast. Where did we start? We started out where most 7-year-olds start. 7-year-olds know that they're hopeless at drawing, hopeless at cooking, hopeless at this and hopeless at that. But nobody starts out that way. At the age of 3, you can get a kid to paint, you can get a kid to help in the kitchen, you can get a kid to do whatever you want them to do, and they're very eager and they don't have a fixed mindset. That fixed mindset comes from us, the information we give them, the information they derive from what they see around them, and then by the time they're 7 or 8, it's pretty much a fixed mindset. And some of it shifts along the way, and the reason why it shifts is because of the second part, which is they get good at a skill. A kid who has never looked at a computer is given a computer, they are able to make a movie, and you're not able to make a movie, and now suddenly they're empowered, and that helps them get the skill set and then the mindset. And now they're suddenly good at computers, and suddenly good at movies, and suddenly good at all of these things, and they've got this / against them. Which means that for us to get those slashes on our business card, we have to do something similar. We have to get a skill set, which leads to the mindset, and then we don't feel that imposter syndrome. Because you're good at it, and people say you're good at it, and often you get to the stage, if you push that long enough and hard enough, you get paid for it. But in the third part, we also recognize that we have to look at the multiple battles that we're fighting. On level 3, we're fighting a battle of a job being better than a business or more stable than a business. That's something that we've grown up with. And then on level 2, we're going, English is not my first language, and so people might not pay attention to me that much, or Spanish is not my first language. I can't communicate in that language. And we have this second battle going. And then we have the third battle going, which is the skill set itself, which could be web design or article writing or cartooning or whatever it is that you choose to do. And all of these factors are like rattling your cage the whole time. And you think, well, I'm hopeless at it. You're not hopeless at it. You're just fighting multiple battles. You have to recognize it. And when you've recognized it and you realize the kind of battles you're fighting, then, yes, it's irresponsible if you just sit back and go, no, I can't do anything. I'm just hopeless at it. Because you know that the one thing that you can do is you can start to get a skill. It doesn't matter what the skill is. In Photoshop, you can learn a few things today and a few things tomorrow. And there's YouTube. You don't have to pay for anything. You can learn almost anything you want on YouTube. There's stuff at your library. There are online services at your public library. Go get a library card, learn there. And, there are courses like we do have them online at Psychotactics. And you could learn those skills, but you don't always have to pay for stuff. There's so much stuff that's free. And there's so much stuff that can empower you. And all you have to do is do that little progression. And then you can stop calling yourself irresponsible and feeling irresponsible. And this brings us to the end of this podcast where we talked about mindset versus skill set. Give me a skill set any day, and the mindset will follow. With that, let's find out what's happening in Psychotactics land. One of the things that really change your worldview is the ability to draw. As I said, all of us draw at the age of 3, all of us. And then maybe we draw to the age of 6, and then we're suddenly 30 years old or 40 years old or even older. And then we say, I draw like a 6-year-old. It's true. You draw like a 6-year-old because you stopped drawing at 6, which of course means that now if you're 40 years old, you have 34 years worth of catching up to do. No. 6 months from today, you could be a really good cartoonist. You won't be the world's best cartoonist. But if you did that course, the Da Vinci course, which is what we have every year, you will find that in 6 months, you're able to draw so well that you suddenly change your mindset. And you go, if I can draw, what else can I do? I said I couldn't draw. And now everyone around me is saying, how come you didn't tell us that you could draw so well? I didn't know you were a cartoonist. And suddenly your mindset is changing because people around you are telling you that. So on the 20th of June, that's when the Da Vinci course seats open. To get on the course, you have to go to psychotactics.com/Da Vinci. Now this is just the waiting list, and we send it out to 5,000 BC members first, and then after that to the waiting list. So if you want your seat well in advance, you have to be in 5,000 BC. And if you just want to be on the waiting list, then just go to psychotactics.com/Da Vinci. That's DAVINCI. The other thing that you might not know, but we've been working quite hard at, is a 6-part series on the psychology of starting up. Now, a lot of people really struggle with the psychology. There's also methodology, but it's the psychology that slows them down. Just like we did in today's episode. There is all this mental stuff that we need to clear up before we can go ahead, and it's the mental stuff that stops us. So we're going to cover the psychology and the methodology of starting up. It's a 6-part series, and we've been doing it live, and then you've got high fidelity recordings of it. So more information will show up sooner than later, but that's in mid-July. And that brings us to the end of this podcast. If you haven't already joined us in 5000 BC, we'd love to see you there. I'll say bye for now. Bye-bye. Still listening? I had a fixed mindset about cooking as well. It wasn't like I was a bad cook. It's just that I needed 24 pans. I burnt a frying pan every single year. It was like some kind of routine, some kind of annual event where I would burn a frying pan. And all these dishes would be all over the place every time I cooked. And then I couldn't cook without every single ingredient in place. And, you change that mindset over the years. You cook with whatever's there. You don't burn pans. You don't have to buy frying pans every year. All of that changes. It used to take me hours to cook a dish. Now you can show up with 5 people, 6, 7, maybe 20 people, and we can have dinner in half an hour, maybe 2 or 3 dishes. I wasn't a great cook. I changed my skill set, improved that skill set. It improved my mindset. Now we don't have burnt frying pans. But I've still destroyed a couple of pressure cookers, so I'm still working on that. I'll say bye for now. Bye-bye. And that brings us to the end of the 4th rerun. We have 4 out of 6, 2 more to go, obviously. What's happening in Psychotactics land? This month, on the 23rd of Jan, we're going to have the Info Products Home Study course, the self-study course. And this course shows you how to assemble the information together. So it's not overwhelming. We're just sick of information that's just put together, like slapped together, chapter after chapter, without any understanding of how people learn. And if you bought into Psychotactics, which is probably why you're looking at courses like this, then you've been able to apply a lot of the stuff and it keeps you coming back. It's good for us as a company, but it's also good for you to get results. Both parties want to get the same kind of situation, which is to keep coming back. To understand the structure, the system, the method that we use or have been using for the past 20 years, well, go to psychotactics.com/info goodies. So that's, as it sounds, you get info goodies and you get on the waiting list. The second thing that's happening early in the year is on the 27th of Feb, and that's the copywriting course or the sales page course. Now, this is both a live version as well as a home study version. A lot of the information that you're going to need is going to be on the sales page itself. So go to psychotactics.com/x sales page. That'll put you on the waiting list. That'll give you all the goodies. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll say bye for now, and we'll see you in 5000 BC.